Welcome everyone to PGN Live as Boo Mini hops in the chat saying, "We can't hear you." Thank you for letting me know. I like that pop out chat. Boom. And boom. And we should be good to go. As I was saying, right when Boo Mini popped in, depending on when you arrive in the stream, it may be more ready or less. If you're here at the very beginning, usually it's going to take a moment or two for things to get underway. So I'm glad you're here. Okay. Alrighty. So, welcome. I'm not sure how many of you are in here right now, but like I said, this is PGN Live, and we are going to talk about some video game industry things today, including going over Gamescom opening night live, which took place last night in Germany, the Kirby Air Riders Direct, which took place yesterday morning on the West Coast and East Coast, some anticipation for this fall, including PAX West, which will be taking place like a week and a half from now, and the cool titles that will be on display there. Rumors about a Nintendo Direct upcoming, and an announcement from PlayStation today regarding their PS5, PS5 Digital, and PS5 Pro all going up in cost, starting very soon. In fact, I just put up on X a new list of how much everything is costing if you want to enter into the video game industry with a current modern platform here in 2025. So we could discuss those different price options. Most of you watching this probably realistically have already a Nintendo Switch, Xbox Series, PlayStation 5, or Nintendo Switch 2. Maybe the smallest portion of you have an NS2 just because it is the newest system out there, right? So maybe there's a greater community here for PS4 and Xbox One owners, but those systems are pretty old at this point. They're definitely last gen. I mean, even PS5 and Xbox Series are almost 5 years old, and it feels like they've hardly been tapped in expressiveness of what they could truly do from their first party owners. Nintendo Switch, yeah, that's a part of that PS5 and Xbox Series gen, but it came out earlier, so it's going on 8.5. So really, the newest system, the only system of the new generation that kicked it off, is Nintendo Switch 2. But we've got a lot of different pricing options, and we could go over what those are. Let's see. Boo Mini, I still feel like $70 is too high for Kirby Air Riders. That'll be a good point to talk about. That'll be something that we could discuss for sure. I think it's an important thing to go over, in fact, to talk about the whys. Is it too important? And not to sway anybody's opinion this way or that way, but maybe to provide some context or insight as to why or why not you feel that way. If anybody else wants to chime in too, go for it in the chat and say, do you feel like Kirby Air Riders is worth the $70 price tag based off of what you've seen so far or not? Here's kind of how I look at it. Oh, let me read these comments first. It looks like a fun game, and I know $70 to $80 is the new normal, but it just seems too high. And Pokemon 34, hi. Pokemon fan 34, hi, hi, hi. Welcome, welcome. So, if you look at Kirby Air Ride, which was released like back in 2003, it was a $50 game. And this is $70 some 22 years later. How much that game cost back then was definitely less based off of the amount of people involved, how much the companies were paying their employees for the art team, sound team, voice actors, people that are hired by the dozens to play test multiple hours worth to go through that whole debug process and find out what bugs are in the system to make reports, how much the companies were paying on the rent, or if they fully owned the building in which they were working for the janitorial services, how much they had to pay for the electric bill, the water bill for the janitorial services. How much did the people's cost of living cost back then in 2003? Gas travel in their vehicles to go to and from work. How much their apartments, condominiums, townhouses, or traditional based houses, or whatever, wherever they were living, how much did that month cost? How much did that rent cost per month? Their mortgage and so forth. How much were their groceries? All of that stuff, right? Minimum wage per country, per region. Now you look at 23 years later, everything has gone up so much more. How much Bandai Namco, Sora, Nintendo themselves are paying for all of these respective things now. The DWP bill for electric, for water, for waste management, the janitorial services, how much they're paying voice actors, animators, the amount of people on staff, on top of how much each staff member is getting, the cost of living for that gas travel back and forth, for that food intake for those people's families, medical insurance policies, everything going up. Video games staying at $60 for as long as they have has been really a fortunate thing that I think most of us have been able to say, yeah, gaming is awesome because it's cheap relative to everything else going up. Movie theater tickets, they're not $5.25 anymore. Now they're $16, $17, $20, $24. You have options like AMC A-List that you pay $20, $24 and you get 12 movies a month, but your standard a la carte movie ticket is not like $5.25, $5.50 anymore. Comic books aren't just 99 cents, $1.25 anymore. They're $5, right? They're up. Could you get a phone these days? Yeah, but phones aren't like $40 for the typical phone. Most people have gotten used to spending, $600, $700, $1,200 on a phone these days. And those are some of the entertainment things. Look at what you have to do, like gas for traveling in your vehicle. It's not $1.50 anymore per gallon. You could be paying $4.50, $5.75 a gallon sometimes. How much you're paying for your water bill, for your electric, for coffee, for milk, for eggs. Everything has gone up. So the fact that gaming, for the most part, has stayed at 60. Now, yeah, the GameCube era with PS2 and Xbox, 50 was the default because gaming went down in cost from the cartridge-based medium previously during like NES, SNES, Sega Genesis, Nintendo 64 era at 60, with like PlayStation being disc, 50, GameCube, PS2, Xbox continuing, 50, but like only Nintendo stayed at 50 during that Wii era. PS3 and Xbox 360, they went back up to 60 again. And then it took Nintendo some time to finally get up to 60 again themselves in 2012 with Wii U. And then they kept 60 all the way until like 2025. Tears of the Kingdom was the only game that cost 70. Echoes of Wisdom, which came out after Tears of the Kingdom, still cost 60. So from being $60 a pop for Super Mario 64 back in 1996 and $60 for Majora's Mask in 2000 and going down to this 50 level area for the likes of the Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Super Mario Sunshine, Metroid Prime, Super Mario Galaxy. That was a good time to be a Nintendo fan paying paying $10 less than you were the decade prior. Wow. When in reality, gaming development was going up, but the medium went down, so they decided to make the games more affordable too. But now the medium has gone up due to cartridge format, due to, 4K Blu-ray format costing more to print than a traditional CD. And these cartridges, these Nintendo 64 gigabyte cartridges for Nintendo Switch 2 costing more than what could have been printed on a 16 gigabyte cartridge for a game on Nintendo Switch. And yeah, 70 kind of the new norm. I know it feels a little bit of a shock, or it could be a little bit jarring going all of a sudden from 60 to 70. But trust me, if, let's for instance say that Nintendo back in 2012 started to go up $1 a year. So 2013, 61. 2014, games cost 62. 2015, games cost 63. 2016, game cost $64. Boom, 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 boom. If games ended up costing $73, $74 now, that's kind of the natural evolution of this $1 a year upcharge for the last 13 years. It would have been less impactful and would have hurt less people seeing it, but then you would have looked back and said, the last 13 years you were spending more each year, so all those games that you purchased ever so continuously cost more. Less impactful in the time, but you would have spent far more than 60 those entire 12, 13 years, minus a couple of games like Tears of the Kingdom, and some other titles on like Xbox and PlayStation. But now having that jump to 70 is more impactful, going from 60 to 70. Whoa. But the alternative, if you had to go back in time and do it another way, you would have spent far more in the last 12 years. So I think 70, with all that said, with all other prices going up in the world, with everybody's salaries going up, everybody's voice acting fees, art fees, time, travel, distance, factors, janitorial services, electric, water, everything, I completely understand the jump to 70. And in some cases, 80, if a game truly had a long development cycle with a lot of people on it, was a big project, multiple years, multiple studios, collaborative efforts, more songs than normal, more playtesters because more things could go wrong than normal. 80. Yeah. I know that was a long speech, and I've said similar things before on like podcasts and whatnot. But while you're all here right now, and the topic of Kirby Air Riders comes up, and that $70 price tag being too much, I think the increase in price of 70 over 50 from Kirby Air Riders to what it was back then, Kirby Air Ride, 22 years ago, you look at how much everything else went up in the world compared to how much the sequel went up 22 years later. And I think the price of the games increase is less than what minimum wage, what all other forms of entertainment, what all these companies have to pay these salaries for, etc. is. So in those regards, you're getting a deal. Especially if it's like That's 60 to 70, definitely a deal. 50 to 70, yeah, that's a little bit of a greater pill to swallow, but uh, I still think you're coming up on the positive end of value with that jump, right? Michael Gutmann, welcome to the stream. Let's see what some other people have been saying. Pokemon Fan 34 is torn back and forth on whether to get the game or not. Maybe you need a demo. Maybe you need to see some gameplay footage from folks coming out of PAX West and their impressions on it. Like beefy, here's a recording of me on camera playing the game so you could see the person and the gameplay and hear how fun it is, hear how the options are truly there for you. Kind of like how I did when I went to the Nintendo Switch 2 experience in LA. Like, I had a nice 20-minute video of me playing Donkey Kong Bonanza saying just how it feels, just how good it is, etc. And sure enough, the game was terrific, or Split Fiction. Like, man, this is fun. So maybe you need that, and then some later detailed, post-play impressions of several people talking together. Or you need a demo yourself. Like, you need to go to, like, eventually Target, GameStop, Walmart, Best Buy, and sit down or stand up or whatever and play some Kirby Air Riders there. Better yet would probably be if Nintendo had an eShop demo of it, but if not, yeah, maybe you need to play it yourself. You never played the original. It's not on Nintendo Switch Online yet. Expansion pack. But I imagine it will be sooner or later. You'll get it if Boo Mini gets it, so you'll have more people to play with. Boo Mini probably won't because you've got Mario Kart World. Yeah, the games do satisfy, at the end of the day, the racing crowd, and maybe you don't need another racing game. But if you want like a battle royale game that feels very different, has different types of mini games involved, a different sense of chaos when it comes to weapons and fighting one another, a little bit Smash Brothers mixed with Twisted Metal and Mario Kart and Kirby Air Ride all coming into one game and thus being Kirby Air Riders, I think you could definitely enjoy it for a different reason, in a different way, from Mario Kart World, But maybe it's too similar, despite it being quite different, that it's like, at the end of the day, I still see it as a racing game, and the other mechanics, the city tours and all that other stuff, that's all secondary for me. Well, maybe it will become first for you. But yeah, to each their own. Mario Kart World needs DLC. I think it will get it eventually. Maybe once Pokemon Coliseum or Paul Gale of Darkness comes to GameCube NSO and Pokemon Legends ZA comes out, you'll feel differently about Mario Kart World. Let's see. Michael Gutmann with a comment. Where was it? A lot of you are commenting, so it's taken me a while to scroll down. The biggest argument against Nintendo's $70 games is that it costs Sony or Microsoft a lot more to make games that they sell for $70. Let's see. Whether you go see Superman in theaters that has a couple $100 million budget with a bunch of special effects and flashy capes and CGI and all this stuff used in it, or the new Naked Gun that probably has a budget that's far less. I don't know how much off the top of my head, but let's call it 40 million. How much do you end up paying when you go to your local AMC and watch it at 7 p.m. in a regular non-IMAX auditorium? I don't know, 17 bucks for this 2-hour experience or this hour 45-minute experience. Whether the studio spent $200 million making it or $40 to $50 million making it, you end up spending the same amount. If you choose to have popcorn during that experience, you're still spending $9 for the popcorn bucket to watch Superman, or $9 for the popcorn bucket to watch Naked Gun. But you could take the popcorn out of the equation because that was on you. But the movie is still the same price, regardless of how much the studio spent making it. And in reality, with gaming, it's not like Nintendo is charging a whole lot on all their games because, hey, look, they know Dragon Drive was a smaller game. It was a much smaller size. The amount of time and R&D and playtesting probably was a lot less. And what did they do? Charge 20 bucks. Welcome tour. They're not saying, hey, this is a $70 experience. This is $60 worth of value. This had 500 people working on it over 6 years and was an $80 million budget. No, they said, hey, it is 10 bucks. So I think that Nintendo giving a high quality product, a very complete game in most cases, deeming it, hey, $70 for these titles. We've been charging 60 bucks since 1996, y'all. Super Mario 64 came out for $60 in 1996. No matter what state, country, continent you live in, look at what Super Mario 64 cost for you in your region back in 1996. Look at the minimum wage then, and look at the minimum wage now, or what most people are realistically working in now at the jobs that they would have equivalent been working on in 1996, and see that, dang, 29 years later, for games to still be costing 60 and now finally being 70 is really, really affordable in comparison to what the inflation has truly become. You know what I mean? So regardless of like what other studios are doing, I don't think that's necessarily representative of, well, this studio should charge more or less too. They're kind of coming up with their own reasoning, and I'm sure those reasonings are fairly valid. I wouldn't be surprised if Grand Theft Auto 6, a base version, cost $90. Game's been in development for a decade. It's going to have hundreds of hours of gameplay, thousands of lines of voice acting, dozens of hours of speech, plenty of licensed music, and you name it. It's probably going to be an expensive game, but it's probably going to be worth it. And it's probably going to be justified because of how much time was put in. Now you could say, well, then maybe shouldn't that game cost $150? Maybe it should. But then you go into but this is not how movies work. Whether you're watching a kid's animated movie or, something on a small indie level, or maybe a little bit more than an indie level, you go to the theater, you're going to spend 17 bucks or whatever on that film, or you're going to watch the next Avengers movie, where Robert Downey Jr. is getting paid $95 million for the role. The whole film has a budget of $410 million. You're still going to pay that same $16, $17 in a theater. The more you look at life from all different perspectives, all different mediums, appreciate the past, recognize the future, look at how much you make now versus then, what things cost then versus now, the understanding of teams and sizes going bigger. Not to be a blind sheep and go in life saying, well, I should just pay for everything what it is. But I think there is some understanding that's developed in time of, oh yeah, I I get it why things do cost more, and yeah, they are worth it. Doesn't mean you have to buy every game though. Doesn't mean you cannot say, you know what, this game I just don't think it is worth that extra 10 or 20. I think it should be 60 or 50. I'm going to wait for Black Friday. I'm going to wait for Target to have a buy two get one half off sale. I'm going to wait for the eShop to have their, every so often throughout the year, their 33.3% off sale. So, yeah. Let's see. I think it'd be nice if they added more free roam in Mario Kart World. That'd be cool. I still think that game is going to get DLC in time. You know what I mean? I think that we will get from it some more characters and some more subsection worlds. More Knockout Tour content. Let's see. A lot of good discussion back and forth. A lot of content in the game not being used. Yeah, I mean, if there are modes available and someone is just not maximizing how much they play that mode, that's kind of on them. Now, maybe that mode isn't entertaining enough, but if it's there, you could say, well, it is part of the reason why the game costs this much. Like, if you only want to go to Kirby Air Riders to race, then maybe just the racing mode isn't worth 70 for you because you don't have interest in the mini games and this city stuff and this other derby stuff and whatever was at the top where Sakurai was saying, oh, it looks like I hit something up top. I'll save that for another time. Maybe like, I don't even care if it's a story mode or whatever. I just want the racing. And the racing with 6 characters, with this online mode and with 16 and all of the different variety of vehicles, but only like 12, 14 racers. Like, the racing part that I want isn't worth a 70. Doesn't mean the whole game's not worth 70, but not worth 70 for you because you're never going to play that dart game, right? Well, and that's where gaming is like, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, It's a little bit different for everybody. I don't think you want the DLC for Mario Kart since that just means they took something out of the game to sell it to you. If you pay for a block wall and the block wall was 6 feet tall and 30 feet wide and made strong and it worked and you paid those people $1,000 for that block wall that's 6 feet tall and 30 feet wide, made out of brick. They did the proper amount of rebar in these cinder blocks and all that stuff. And later on, you're like, you know what? I wouldn't mind another foot added to the block wall in height to make it 7 feet high, and another 5 feet in width to make it 35 feet long. And I kind of want it plastered. I want a finish over it that's not just looking like brick, but I want it to have a stucco finish. And it's like, okay, that's going to be an extra $400. That's the DLC. As long as you got the complete product, that you paid for what you wanted, and it was structurally sound, and it worked out right, and it was what you wanted. A 6 foot tall block wall that's 30 feet long, and you paid $1,000, and then you got to pay another $400 for another foot added, another 5 foot added this way, and have a little bit of stucco finish, $400 more, so be it. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, a very full, complete game with a lot of characters, a lot of music, a lot of time put in, a lot of stages. Yeah, more stages, more songs, more characters, and they cost several bucks at a time. Hey, it just made the game better. It didn't make the game worse by you having to pay for it. It was extra. Back in the day, Street Fighter 2, $60 Super Nintendo. A year later, Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Some more abilities in terms of gameplay and 4 more characters, but another $60. couple years later, Super Street Fighter 2. Another mode, some more colors, another 4 more characters. 60, 60, 60, $180 in the span of 24 months to play Street Fighter 2 to Turbo Super 2. These days, Street Fighter 6, $60 game. But instead of a full-on re-release, a character pass here and a costume pass there, and you could buy it as a bundle for $40 or a la carte for $6, $7 here, there, $5, $3, wait for it on sale, etc. Street Fighter 6 was a complete game. Came with a story mode, came with a world tour mode, came with arcade endings, came with versus mode, came with a decent amount of default characters and colors, and you could outright buy the alternate costumes if you wanted to, or earn them in the game. I think we have it pretty good these days with the amount of content we're getting for what we're spending, for what we're paying, And yeah, we have a lot of options. There's also plenty of options for free games these days. A lot of stuff is free. You could enjoy Fortnite and don't even have to have an online membership to any of Nintendo's, Sony's, or Microsoft's services. It's just available. And Fortnite will give you a lot of hours of fun. And you can even earn the in-game currency by just playing without paying initially. Oh, a demo on the eShop would be cool. Yeah. Let's see what else. Yeah, chat is going off. Woo! Thank you all for being so talkative. This is great. It's great to read all of this. Let's see. Talking about Mario Kart. DLC eventually, maybe not yet. General discussion. PlayStation raising the prices of the PS5 models. Yeah, that's one of the topics that we were going to talk about today. Xbox handheld, we now know the date, but no official price yet of the two models. And then just like that, more people coming in here. J Biggs, Mr. NY for life. Sorry, I was reading through the comments and Joycey J is here. Welcome, welcome. And then Michael Gutman saying $900 for the higher tier ROG Ally Xbox, correct? In which the smaller version is like $550 or something like that. I want to get the prices down. Yeah, maybe people will stop complaining about the Switch One price hike. We'll see, because the new prices, everything's gone up. Okay, check it out. Yes, Nintendo Switch went from, well, we'll start with Lite. Nintendo Switch Lite went from $200 to $230. Nintendo Switch from $300 to $340. Nintendo Switch OLED model from $350 to $400. So your entry point into the ecosystem of Nintendo Switch is now $230. At a time like this, almost 8.5 years in, it would have been nice to have it go down, but with things going on in the world today and tariffs and stuff like that, I guess that's understandable. Unfortunate, but understandable. Xbox Series. There's 5 of them to go over here. You got the Xbox Series S 512 gigabyte model from $300 to $380. The Xbox Series S 1 terabyte model from $350 to $430. Keep in mind, $430, that's just $20 shy of a brand new Nintendo Switch 2. The Xbox Series X digital version from $450 to $500. Now you're looking at Nintendo Switch 2 price for a system that is almost 5 years newer, that's also portable, that's probably going to have a longer life up ahead, and will be coming with Mario Kart World or Pokemon Legends ZA. Xbox Series X 1 terabyte version from $500 to $600. And the Xbox Series X 2 terabyte version from $600 to $730. So with no increase in power, just another terabyte, that's a $130 difference between the two high-end Xbox Series X models. It used to be a $100 difference, $500 or $600. Now it's $600 or $730. My gosh. You're spending $130 more for another terabyte of internal storage, in which you could buy, an external drive if you so desired, to save some money or have even more storage. But the point of entry of Xbox family is not that cheap anymore. At one point, $300 was like, hey, that's the price of a Nintendo Switch, and Xbox Series S is, 3.5 years newer. Now it's $380. Now that $380 is more than the base Nintendo Switch's $340, and definitely more, because it always has been more than the Nintendo Switch's Lite. Getting tongue tied. Than the Nintendo Switch Lite's $200, now $230. PlayStation 5 from $499 to $549 for the base. For the digital, from $450 to $500. So $500 for a system with no disc, which means that if you purchased primarily a library of PS4 games that were disc games last gen, you're not going to play them on this system by default. Or PS5 Pro from $700 to $750. True, that $699 to $749 is not that great of a markup in terms of percentage, but it is still $50 more. And then you've got Nintendo Switch 2. Cross your fingers that there's no price hike, because right now Nintendo Switch 2 is looking very appealing. $450 for a brand new console, capable in many ways of putting out the same games that are modern, that are releasing on Xbox Series and PlayStation 5. And through Nintendo's own magic and through DLSS, looking quite there. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4, WWE 2K26, Indiana Jones, Daemon X Machina. These day and date modern games coming out, and it's only $450 to go into Nintendo Switch 2. And now the cheapest you could get an Xbox Series S is $380. $70 more for Nintendo Switch 2. Is that worth it? I think, despite being $70 more, overall, it is looking like Nintendo Switch 2 is the more capable machine than Xbox Series S, because though, the CPU, GPU is a little bit more here, and a little bit more modern tech there, and DLSS there, a little bit slower clock speed here and there, and then the teraflop on this side, but the gigs of RAM more on this, and visual, and and it's all balancing out, and you're like, you know what? Overall, Nintendo Switch 2 can output more than Xbox Series S. And it's completely portable too. So I think that $70 is justified. When you compare it to PlayStation 5, you could compare it to the $550 base one, but even if you go to the digital at 500, you're $50 less, and you have the ability to have physical tangible games and physical tangible backlog, in which on that PS5 digital you wouldn't have that disc backlog. So I think it's really more fair to go Nintendo Switch 2 to PlayStation 5 disc, and then you're looking at $100 difference. $450, $550. I think that Nintendo Switch 2 is more compelling at $450 because, okay, they both have the backwards compatibility. They both have a cartridge or disc medium. One is almost 5 years old. One has just recently released for the summer of June, right? One will still be supported for years to come, but that parent company is slowly going to shift gears towards the successor in PlayStation 6. The other one, is going to be supported for another several years by their first party creator in Nintendo. Both will have good third party support, but I think Nintendo Switch 2 wins on it over a base PS5, it over an Xbox Series S. And then if you look at some other kind of factors, that $500 Nintendo Switch 2 bundle, that is more attractive to me than the base Xbox Series X physical, which is $600, because it's $100 less and comes with a game. So there's some good value there. And I think it's, in some ways, a better value than the PS5 Pro at $750, because now you're looking at Sony's highest tier system, but that's $750. And are you getting enough of an improvement out of that now $250 difference, or $200 difference if you're going from PS5 to PS5 Pro? So $200 to $250 difference. Are you getting enough of a difference in visual fidelity, graphics, performance, frame rate, load times to justify that $250 cost? I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I think $50 to go from the base Nintendo Switch to the Nintendo Switch OLED model was worth it. A bigger screen, an OLED screen, more brightness, a better kickstand, more clear audio, double the internal storage, and a much better battery life. I think that was worth the $50. $250 right here? I don't know if that's worth it. For some it is. Yeah. Now, what about the base Nintendo Switch? Is it still good for someone? I think $230, like I said, though I wish that it was less in its, going on 9th year than going up, I think $230 is a good entry point for someone who doesn't need to be on the cutting edge of technology, who maybe is that family that 3 years ago they had a 3-year-old, just the mom and dad, didn't need a video game system. Maybe they weren't really big gamers themselves, but now their kid is 5 or 6, and they're looking at these things and they're like, well, do people still talk about Nintendo Switch? Yeah. Do people still talk about Xbox, PlayStation? Yeah. Or a lot of people talk about Nintendo Switch too? Yeah. Let's look at the prices. $500, $400, $450, $500. Oof. We don't need a whole lot for our little family. We don't need a $1,000 iPad. I think a $230 system's gonna be enough for our little 5-6-year-old kid. We'll get that. I still think $230 is a fair entry point for a young family today for their first system, if it's just for their kid. And even the Switch, which is designated home console with a dock, $340. 340 versus an Xbox Series S at 380. Series S is a more capable, powerful system, but does it even have as vibrant of a community? So despite it being newer, is it as active? Not really, you know. Nintendo Switch is still getting some solid exclusives from Nintendo, and that's kind of the difference maker. More so than Xbox Series S. Unless if you factor in, okay, what about Game Pass on Series S? But you don't have a cheap physical backlog that you could go to GameStop and pick up some used games, or eBay in that kind of market, in which some people that would pick up a Nintendo Switch for $340 might say, oh wow, there are a lot of games that are always on sale or are permanently price reduced, you know, that we can now be picking up. So I think that Nintendo is looking healthier now, in part thanks to Xbox going up and, you know, PlayStation now going up. And when you look at this holiday season and look at the Xbox, you know, ROG Ally, $900 price tag here, several hundred price tag there for other version, and you're looking at, you know, Steam Deck, and even if things go down in price, and then you have Steam Deck 2 on the horizon, and that's going to be more expensive. Nintendo Switch is kind of covering everything. They've got the cheapest entry point and the newest platform, you know, minus like ROG Ally, Xbox when that comes out, or Steam Deck 2. But trusted support from first parties that people love, that's going to happen for years to come based off of the past, looking like it's going to be continuing. And good third-party support too, even if it's not the best. Nintendo's still very compelling. They're going to be in it this generation. Let's see what some more comments are saying. One moment. I received a message. Let's see, what is this? Okay. Yeah, Xbox with the 5 models. Cyberpunk, another good one. Although that came out in 2020, so it's not exactly new. I don't really care if a game looks slightly better somewhere else. Switch 2 looks good enough and has fun games, so I'm fine with it. Yeah, I mean, unless if you're like truly nitpicking or you want to get mad, then there's really no reason to get mad at like any of the visuals on Nintendo Switch 2. I mean, I played Street Fighter 6 quite thoroughly on PS5 and Xbox Series X, and I'm loving the game even more on Nintendo Switch 2. And like, I have to switch HDMIs to be like, oh yeah, okay, the Nintendo Switch 2 version looks slightly less good, but it still looks fantastic. But I get that thing on portable, and I get to take it with me, and it's beautiful. It's an amazing experience, you know? I don't know what Split Fiction is like to own it on PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X. I've only played it on Nintendo Switch 2, but I am loving it. Well, I loved it. I beat it. Still gonna play it more on with my kids' files and stuff like that, being their second player. But yeah, no complaints. So maybe you're not getting the best visuals, the best performance, but that portable factor and the fact that what you are getting is so good, dude, it's worth it. Nintendo struck gold with Nintendo Switch, and Nintendo Switch 2 is really continuing that. The only thing is, do recommend or give some third parties an opportunity to have a 32 gigabyte cartridge, even if Nintendo has to get this manufacturing line open, blah, blah, blah. Or third parties, hey, have a SKU that's a $10 more SKU for a physical cartridge. Just be transparent with the audience. Digital 70, game key card 70, physical cartridge on store shelf 80. Okay. Maybe you're still technically losing a little bit because apparently these 64 gigabyte cartridges cost somewhere between 12 to 17 bucks. But would you rather sell this much of a product and be limited because not many people, or not as many people, want to buy it because it's game key card, or sell this much and this much, but sell this much, and even if in this one, for every one you're selling, you're losing a little bit, you still end up on top? Do your research and find out. Poll your audiences. Pull your community. Once that problem is ironed out, where more companies start giving physical cartridges as an option, not eliminating game key cards, just giving physical cartridges as an option, then I think confidently Nintendo Switch 2 is going to have a tremendous generation. I already think it's going to have a great generation. I already think it's going to be fantastic. But tremendous is you get that little component ironed out, because then it's further reducing some people's complaints. And you want to get a system out there with as little complaints as possible coming from the masses. You'll never satisfy, though, because some people will say, oh, it's $80. Now I'm complaining at the fact that it's $10 more than the game key card. Oh, it's more than the digital, etc. It's already more. You want to go cheap? Buy a game on the eShop for $70. There's no tax. You want to spend more? California tax is going to be $76.50 if you buy a physical. So it's already more by default. So you already know, hey, even if it goes from 70 to 80 because of the cartridge, that is a 70 no tax, or you're going to be paying like $87.60 for physical. That's up to you. So even if it wasn't a price hike, though, you're still going to pay several dollars more for physical. You know? You're not going to please everyone, but you want to try to please as many as possible. Exucky Jucky, PlayStation price change for the console. Yeah. Switch 2 from Joycey J has unique exclusives you can't get anywhere else and is portable. Nintendo has a healthy start with Switch 2. You're interested in how many PS5s will move because of GTA 6. Yeah. Nintendo Switch 2, it has the most amount of exclusives from the in-house company that develops that system, and that's what's going to make Nintendo attractive all generation long. J Biggs, Mr. NY for life. Yeah, PS6, $900. It's going to be something like that. No disk drive, you got to pay for that. Yep, Pokemon Fan 34, true, for certain models. MSI Craw is coming, new portable game. PS5 Pro is worth it if you use the Dreamcast Guy payment plan. I'm not sure what that payment plan is that you're referring to. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Like I said, $200, $250 more. Is that worth it to you to have better graphics, better loading, higher fidelity, better frame rate? Maybe, maybe not. To me, I think a 1 terabyte SD card for Nintendo Switch 2 is what's needed. 256 isn't enough. 512, barely going to handle it. If you're coming from someone who owned games last gen and you would like to have an easy way of playing them and like to have a good amount of future titles that can accrue on Nintendo Switch 2, a terabyte is the way to go. But at $200, $220 for that micro SD Express card, I don't think that $200 is justified. I don't think it's worth it. It's unfortunate, but it's too much for the convenience factor. So some people will decide to play Refrigerator, annoyingly, taking their library in and out. And some people will, I think, make the mistake of buying too small of a card and then get frustrated that, dude, this is not enough either. I'm going to have to buy a bigger card later, and now I have 2 little cards floating around. Do I sell one? Do I just not use one? What do I do? So I'm in the boat of playing Refrigerator temporarily. It's okay. The library is still small enough. Don't need everything on it all the time. There also aren't a whole lot of things yet, but I have already been like, okay, I want to download that Apex Legends on Nintendo Switch 2 just to give it a shot. I'm not planning on keeping on it permanently. I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah, there's a difference between Apex Legends on Nintendo Switch OLED model and Nintendo Switch 2. But that thing was 79 gigs. 79 gigs. I had to delete something. Oh, I wanted to play that Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion demo. It was 20.1 gigs for the demo. Yeah, I had to delete something. Now, I could have already been someone that bought a 256 or 512 gig micro SD Express card, but I knew that the small one isn't big enough for me, and that mid-sized one would last a little bit longer, but it's not right for me either. I need the 1 terabyte. So I am patiently waiting, either on sale or through other means, but not paying $200. Some of it is the principle of the matter, almost, you know? And I think that's what a lot of people's things are, is the principle of the matter is I shouldn't pay more for a game that costs 70 when this game had a higher budget and it's also releasing for 70. And everybody makes their own price justifications in life. That's what everybody does. There's always that going on everywhere in everything. Pokemon fan 34, what's the price? I'm not sure on what. Maybe on PS5 Pro. If that's what you're talking about, it's like $750. Joycey J, you're interested in what the PS6 will have to offer when it drops? Yeah. I got a PS5 Pro at launch. However, I didn't need one day one because the game I played that holiday season was Spider-Man Miles Morales, and I loved it. But I could have played it on my PS4, but I enjoyed it more so on a PS5. There are other games like, gosh, God of War Ragnarok. I could have bought that on PS4, but I'm glad I got it on PS5. Horizon Forbidden West, same thing. Now, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, that was made exclusively for PlayStation 5, and I like the game a lot. I think it's awesome. Spider-Man 2, only for PS5. I like the game a lot. It was awesome. Was that $500 machine worth it for those two $70 games that I could not have played elsewhere? As a gamer's gamer, I'm going to make it worth it if it's a good game to buy a system that is the only place I could play said title. So were those two games, now what, 70 and 70 is 140 plus 500, were those two games $640 worth of entertainment? No. But the PS5 has given me a better place to play Final Fantasy VII Remake, ended up becoming the only place to play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, will become the only place to play Ghost of Tsushima, or Ghost of Yotei, gave me an improved experience on Ghost of Tsushima. So in the end, the console was worth it, you know, improving enough of the old stuff and eventually being the only place to play the new stuff, including like Wolverine. Yeah, fine. You know, a better place to play Uncharted and The Last of Us. So in the end, worth it. Xbox Series X, worth it in some regards. Not as many exclusives. The unfortunate event of things being canceled, like Perfect Dark, kind of frustrating. And with Microsoft's direction of moving forward, having things everywhere, I don't know if a next generation Xbox is going to be necessary anymore. If and when they eventually, hopefully, say, Perfect Dark is back on track, and we started all over again. Coming to Xbox in 2030. And coming to PS6 in 2031 and on Nintendo Switch 2 in 2031. At that point, I'm going to be playing so many games from Nintendo and Sony and Capcom and Microsoft and Konami and Activision, Ubisoft, everyone, that like, I won't be, the only thing I have to look forward to is Perfect Dark. I need to play it 1 year earlier or else all is over. There's going to be enough that like, even if that's Microsoft's strategy, I don't know if that's compelling enough of a reason for me to buy a designated Xbox machine if I know that all their first-party games are eventually going to be elsewhere, even if it's like 6 to 12 months later. PlayStation's also experiencing some of that, thanks to, you know, like Spider-Man 2. Now you could play it elsewhere. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, that one I was talking about, it's also now on PC. Helldivers 2, their PS5 game, now on Xbox Series. So it's really just Nintendo sticking to its guns of exclusives and them getting more and more third parties. I think Nintendo's going to win this generation. Even when PS6 and Xbox Next are coming, are going to show up, you know, probably November 2026 to March 2027 is my guess for those two. I think Nintendo Switch 2 is still going to win this gen. Published. Welcome. Exucky Chucky. We'll see game portable out soon by 2026. Which game? Portable? I'm not sure which one you mean. Nintendo Prime and beat 'em ups just dropped new videos. That's cool, Michael Gutmann. I'll check those out later. Doing great. This has been nice having Paul ramble about topics of the video game world lately on his own live stream. Thank you, Published. Hopefully it's a good ramble. I really don't understand why we need a PS6. Yeah, Michael Gutmann. The PS5 is very capable. They should just focus on new games, I know. What I kind of don't want to see is, oh, new systems could do 8K? Yeah, let's do 8K at 30. Dude, just maximize 4K 60 and make games more creative, more volume, better tangibility in the environments, more destructive environments, better physics like Breath of the Wild on a 2012 machine. You realize Breath of the Wild is playable on a 2012 machine in Wii U, based off of like 2009-10 tech, for crying out loud. And Breath of the Wild smokes most games out there in terms of its overall open air concept of actual tangibility with the environment, sophistication in real world physics being applied to this 3D title, kind of amplified more so by Tears of the Kingdom, a 2023 game made off of a 2017 system, off of like 2014-15 tech in Nintendo Switch. I'm not saying don't make games look better. No, make the graphics look better. But in terms of the picture clarity, 4K is good enough. 4K, 60, oh, what about 120, dude? I could care less. 4K, 60, boost up the game's integrity, make solid experiences, and pump more assets into polygons, lighting, shadows, texture effects than you are in resolution for 8K and 120 frames per second. Not needed, in my opinion. 4K, 60, bump up the raw polygons, minimize the loading times, and increase the game's awesomeness in size and scope and what you could do. And that should be next gen. We'll see. We'll see. It's going to get more expensive. And the law of diminishing returns is going to be a thing more and more so. So unless the games look better, if it's just about a race to 8K, 120 frames per second, most people aren't going to care. Most people aren't going to notice the difference. You know, you're going to have Super Mario Galaxy 3 or Super Mario Odyssey 2 or Super Mario Universe probably running at 4K 60, looking a little bit better than Donkey Kong Bonanza. And it's going to be such a freaking brilliant, amazing game November 2026. Meanwhile, November 2026, there might be some new system by then that has 8K look and like, unless the game is absolutely mind-blowing, the attractiveness of 8K is not going to make me choose that one over. You know, it has to be a better game than what I know Mario is going to be capable of, because Nintendo is a top-tier studio and they're going to make that thing shine. Plus, I have a 4K OLED TV, LG 65-inch CX 2.1 HDMIs. I got 4 of them. I'm not going to buy a new TV. All of a sudden, I'm plenty happy with that. Clarity, you know? You got to get more power? Put the power into the games. Anyways. Published. I would like to see a console have a minimum performance requirement for any game released on it, like 60 frames per second or 1080p or higher, for example. Yeah, like that would be cool. That'd be cool to see some kind of base, like, hey, you gotta hit this. We'll see. 7-8 years is a long time for a console, J-Biggs, yeah. Joycey, I need a 4K TV to really see the difference, if I even notice, but on my current TV there is a healthy difference. You know, I played through Guardians of the Galaxy on my PlayStation 5, which was a PS4 game, So I was able to go between performance mode, graphics mode. And I would go like this: performance mode, switch over graphics mode. Okay. I go really close to the screen. Performance mode, graphics mode. Okay. So I see Drax's lines a little bit more prominent. Okay, the little bit of the extra musculature here. Let me jump up and down. Performance mode, jump up, jump up, jump up, jump up. Graphics mode, jump up, jump up, jump up, jump up. Okay, I see a little bit more of a frame rate smoothness here, but like I'm also playing 17 feet away from my TV. 65-inch TV, something like 17 feet away or so on my couch. And the difference, same thing in Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, between graphics and performance, dun dun, even on Fast Fusion on Nintendo Switch 2, dun 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 dun. The differences are so minimal because everything looks and runs so nicely. It's not a difference of poor or good. It's just a difference of awesome and a little bit more awesome, or good and better, or great and really great. Like, that's where we've come. The law of diminishing returns is so true with so much of this stuff. I did not get the opportunity because Nintendo didn't have this as an opportunity to do something with it. But at the Nintendo Switch 2 experience in LA, we could only play Metroid Prime 4 Beyond at 1080p 60. I want to see that game at home in 4K 60 instead of 1080. Sorry, we only got to play 1080p 120 hertz, 120 frames per second. I want to see at home that 4K 60 difference, and that's probably the one I'm going to choose because 60 is plenty smooth for me, and I want to see Nintendo's textures in 4K at Retro Studios because I trust it will be better and better enough to make a difference. But we'll see. We'll see this October or November or December. Let's see. You just want more third-party games, but what will happen when? And more third-party games are always coming out. Maybe next month. Yep, Elden Ring and Final Fantasy Remake, those are on the way. True. Let's see. Gaming Observed, what do I think of the Tales series? I haven't played as many as I would have liked. Tales of Symphonia, that's already an old one now. That's like 21 years old. But that's the one that I have the greatest memory of. And I've played some Tales games before and after, but not enough to like truly call myself a fan of the whole franchise. But I like the Tales of games. They're good. It's always fun for me to see a new one come out. Silk Song, but they aren't third party. Well, just because they're an indie studio doesn't mean they're not third party. Technically, all independent developers are third parties because anyone that's not Nintendo, Sony, or Microsoft is a third party, right? Way Forward, they're a third party to Nintendo because they're not Nintendo or Retro Studios, right? Yet, I do know what you mean. Like, they're an indie developer because they are independent, but they're still a third party in a way. The Dreamcast guy payment is sell your PS5 for full price. That's kind of funny. I didn't know that. Sell your PS5 for full price, only to pay the difference then between PS5 and PS5 Pro. I mean, if you took really good care of your PS5 and you're selling it for $500 instead of like the $550 that you paid after tax, and you're selling it as a 4-year-old system, if you clean it off and clean the fan, because the fan inside gets dirty, and you vacuumed out the dust and you unscrewed it and you made it all crisp and clean, and you didn't abuse the disk drive, I guess $500 is better than $550, but realistically, it probably should be selling it less to somebody, unless if they're $50, markdown is already significant enough for them. Everyone different, but kind of funny. Yeah, not a bad strategy, I guess. Sell it and then just use that to pay the difference if you sold it for the original cost. Yeah, Michael Gutmann, you need a terabyte, but not for 200. I agree. Gaming Observed. Oh yeah, I answered that one. Tales of series, like I said, good. I don't play many third parties, so 510 will work for you, Pokemon Fan 34. That's good. Yeah, if you don't plan on buying a whole lot of third party games or downloading demos or have a huge Nintendo Switch backlog of first and third party games, then yeah, maybe that 512 is okay. Published, yeah. I try to get to the questions. J Biggs, let's see. There's a lot of comments, a lot of you in here. Thank you all for coming in here. By the way, I appreciate it. J Biggs, oh yeah. For me, my Nintendo Switch internal storage and the 256 card is full. Once a terabyte is decent price, I will buy one. Yeah. Yeah. Joycey, that's how you feel about Zelda? What, about Tails? Same thing? Yeah. And then Pokemon Fan, that's how you feel about Pokemon Coliseum and Gale of Darkness coming to GameCube. And they'll come. They'll come. Bye, Michael Gutmann. I don't know if you heard that comment. Or heard me saying bye. I don't know if you're still here, because depending on when that was typed out. But bye. Thank you for being here. Let's see. Gaming Observed, same question. Tails, yeah, I got that one already. Well, that's the third time I read it being typed a third time, but it's good. Pokemon Fan 34. Okay, talking back and forth between you and Joycey. Boom, boom, boom. Egomaniac. I stopped caring about graphics after I played Final Fantasy XII when it came out. The law of diminishing returns began a while ago. We've definitely come some way from Final Fantasy XII, but yeah, that was already a pretty good looking game in what? 2005? 4? When did 12 come out? Hold on. 5? 5 or 4? I remember. I mean, yeah, there's okay. Metal Gear Solid 3 on PlayStation 2. Resident Evil 4 on Nintendo GameCube. Gears of War on Xbox. Oh, no, sorry. That was Xbox 360. Doom 3 on Xbox? Yeah. These games in that PS2, GameCube, Xbox generation looked quite good. They were quite a bit improved over the Nintendo 64, Sega Saturn, PlayStation era, right? I mean, that was the infancy of 3D polygons and camera movement in games, so we really jumped up a lot. Going into Wii, a little bit of a visual improvement. You could tell that Super Mario Galaxy 2 looked better than Super Mario Sunshine. You know, we never got like a big jump necessarily, but you could tell that Metroid Prime 3 looked better than Metroid Prime. But that wasn't what Wii was all about, right? You want to look at what did Power do that generation, because that was motion controls and everything else, you know what I mean? You look at Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 and look at the jump over Xbox and PlayStation 2 respectively, and you could see that, okay, Metal Gear Solid 4, quite a jump over Metal Gear Solid 3. Grand Theft Auto 4 and GTA 5, quite significant of a leap over Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Pretty sophisticated. You look at, like, gosh, what else was that era? Yeah, look at something like Gears of War versus Halo, or Gears of War 2 versus Halo 2, right? Look at what a generation later was capable of. Then you go to like, okay, Wii U on this side of things, and you could see that we didn't get a big open world Mario. We got Super Mario 3D World, but okay, just in terms of graphics, resolution, and stuff like that, Super Mario 3D World, yeah, better looking game than Super Mario Galaxy. Uh, what would an open world 3D Mario game look like? Well, you look at Xenoblade Chronicles X, and that was a pretty big, pretty good looking game on Wii U. So imagine cartoony graphics a little bit more so than realistic graphics, and I think a big open world 3D Mario game would have looked awesome on the system. Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, right? Pretty sophisticated models that ran brilliantly on Nintendo Switch, on Wii U. So a 3D game of some sort. It's called Breath of the Wild, just fine. It's called The Wind Waker. Looked really good. So Wii U was capable. You jump into PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Better, definitely. But maybe the last time we saw a big jump. Because going into PS5, I don't think we've seen that yet. Or Xbox Series X, we're like, holy cow, this is a lot better. Because a PS4 game in Uncharted 4 looked quite a bit better in its models and complexity than Uncharted 3. The Last of Us 2, a big difference over what PS3 was capable in The Last of Us. You look at Halo Infinite, or the most recent Forza title, better than what Xbox 360 was capable of in the final Halo or final Forzas of that era. But is Xbox Series Halo Infinite over Xbox One's last Halo? Is the recent Forza on Xbox Series over Xbox One's last Forza? Are they bigger of a jump than 360 to Xbox One? I don't think so. Is Spider-Man 2 over Spider-Man, PlayStation 5 over PlayStation 4, bigger of a difference than, let's see, Ratchet and Clank on PS4 versus the last time you saw a Ratchet and Clank on PS3? No, I don't think so. You know what I mean? Like, this is all thanks to the law of diminishing returns comment. Nintendo, it's working out for them though, because since they took a little bit longer after the Nintendo GameCube era to re-enter kind of the arms race, now the next time you see Mario, since Nintendo Switch was only a little bit more powerful than Wii U in some ways, and Nintendo Switch 2 is quite a bit stronger than Nintendo Switch in every way, the next 3D Mario game is going to blow Odyssey out of the water. The next from the ground made up 3D Zelda game on Nintendo Switch 2 is going to blow out of the water Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. It's going to be pretty awesome. It's going to be pretty awesome. Sean Black, welcome to the stream. Good to see you here. Published. I don't see how PS5 to PS6 is going to be noticeable. We'll see on just how much effort they put into it, with what direction that they do. I don't know. I would love to see games look better, be more expressive, have more things to do, be cooler, be more destructible, have less loading time, have better shadows and lighting and stuff like that, higher sophisticated models and textures, but keep that frame rate at 60, keep the resolution at 4K, and just do more game. But maybe that's not the direction I'm going to take. Maybe it is. Maybe we'll see each developer go a little bit of a different route. I don't know. I'm going backwards now. But Joy CJ, the story behind Jay's comment, is that the comment on the PlayStation 5 selling it for 500 and then buying the Pro for 750, paying the difference? I don't know if that's what you're talking about. If so, I could get the humor in it, but no, I don't know the story behind it. Sean Black just playing through the backlog. Nice. Beat Astral Chain last night. Fantastic. Great game. I love hearing people talk about Astral Chain and playing it because it's so good. Egomaniac87. Nintendo focused on games rather than graphical output and power, and it's the reason why the console wars have ended. LOL. Yeah. They churned out... Not that they did not create beautiful looking games last gen. I mean, everything on Nintendo Switch that they released looked nice. But by them not aiming necessarily for every single little piece of graphical flourish has to be here, they went with good graphics on a good capable machine, and they were able to crank out hit after hit after hit after hit for 8 years without ever having any gaps. Intelligently porting Wii U titles and other games and giving them a little bit of a bump up here, a little bit of a deluxe version there. They were fine. And with Nintendo Switch 2, I expect their output to be less because 4K development is going to require more assets. However, you could once again use some Wii U titles to fill in some slots here. You could take Metroid Samus Returns, or Return of Samus, I forgot, the 3DS one, which was the remake of Metroid 2, which is Return of Samus, or Samus Returns. I forgot the title, like, one is one is the other. But take that one, HDify it, throw it in 4K, boom. Have it on Nintendo Switch 2. That could be released at some point within the next 4 years, in between like Metroid Prime 4 and 5, and there you go. A brand new title that was only played by several hundred thousand people on 3DS because it came out in 2017, like in June, after Nintendo Switch was already out, and it'd be a more or less new game. Oh, you're getting ready for the next new 2D Metroid game in like Dread 2. It's not going to be called Dread 2, but like, you know, the next 2D Metroid. Hey, re-release this 3DS port. Kid Icarus. You have the intention of doing a new Kid Icarus one day? Before you do it, take this 3DS one, HDify it. Boom. There you go. That's another game. You need to fill in a gap in the year so you don't have like 5 months in between new releases, but only 2-3 months? Yoshi's Woolly World for Wii U still hasn't been ported over. Boom. Pop it on over. You have the ambition to hit Star Fox hard and go with an animated series, whether in you know, like animation via anime style or puppeteering style, like Jim Henson kind of work, or a movie or something like that, and you have a new game too. Before that new game comes out, test the waters, port over Star Fox Zero, do Star Fox Assault. It's going to be easier for you, Nintendo, to bring over Nintendo games from the GameCube era and just crispen up the edges and stuff like that, throw on some new textures, 4K, etc., than Nintendo 64 games, for instance, because you've already got dual analogs in there, so the camera angle is already done, and you've got higher resolution textures and, you know, bigger polygons to work with and modify than retooling a lot of it from the N64 era. But you've got stuff left and right that you could do. You know, randomly, you could just say, hey, Mercury Steam, way forward, you want to work on Super Metroid? We have plans for Metroid. And we need Super Metroid from SNES made to look brand new while feeling like it did before, with just a little bit of a touch to improve some gameplay control mechanisms and have a totally new awesome art style. And that's our plan for this fall. Outsource that. We trust you. Boom. There's so much that Nintendo could do. The new Nintendo is different than the old Nintendo. N64 could have had Super NES or SNES games like Super Mario Brothers or Super Metroid done in a higher level of 2D on N64, but it didn't. GameCube could have had some more compilations of older Nintendo games or something like that, or like a remake of Super Mario 64, but it didn't. Wii could have had more, but it didn't. It had, Super Mario Anniversary Collection here. GameCube did have a Zelda bundle collection there. Wii U could have had more ports. Yeah, it had, Wind Waker. Yeah, it had Twilight Princess, but it could have done more. Nintendo Switch was like, let's use our glorious backlog to do some more good with. Game Boy Advance kind of had that strategy, though. They had the e-card reader, some classic titles there. They also had like that Super Mario Advance line, very long titles. DS, started going into like an eShop and a little bit of a backlog. We technically, I guess you could say, well, we had WiiWare, we had classic consoles, so it made old school titles a la carte, but I'm talking about like a compilation, a new release, or an upgraded visual port of something, right? Those are the things that Nintendo hasn't done a whole lot of in the past. But on Nintendo Switch, you saw very conveniently filling in gaps so that the whole generation was this beautiful experience of nothing ever feeling like there was a drought. In Nintendo Switch 2, I think they're going to have to continue relying on that and on third parties. Dang. You've all got some good comments today. And we've barely talked about what's it called? Gamescom. We've barely discussed of the PAX West hype. But hey, we did go over deep into some topics, into the pricing of consoles, future likelihood of systems having more releases, when more systems might come out, how does the fall look like, trajectory of prices from the past to now, and whether or not they're justified, certain games, comparing Kirby to Mario Kart, etc. Like, we've had a lot to talk about today. This has been a very fun discussion. Let's see. Joycey J. If it's Zelda, I'm buying the system that plays it. May as well see if there's other games I could play. And sometimes that's enough. Sometimes, like, is this system going to have my favorite IP? Yeah. What's the point of entry for the system? 200, 300, 400, 500, 600 bucks? But I love Street Fighter, Mario, Zelda, Metal Gear, Grand Theft Auto. That game resonates with me. That game will either get one wonderful playthrough, multiple very fun playthroughs. It'll have a multiplayer component that draws me in all generation long, or some other thing where the music, the story, the characters, I have so much joy from it that, yeah, that was worth the 500 plus 60. That was worth the 560, $620 after tax, whatever, entry point. And like you said, maybe I got into Octopath Traveler. Maybe Splatoon 2 and 3 ended up being something really cool that wasn't Zelda that I put in a lot of hours. Maybe you weren't a big fan of Donkey Kong previously, but hey, you're like, also supposedly Donkey Kong Bonanza is like Breath of the Wild meets Mario with gorillas. Let me give it a try. And that one ended up being awesome. I like Bayonetta, but what is this Astral Chain thing? Oh, I like that. And like, hold on. I like the 2D look of A Link to the Past. Oh, what is this Octopath Traveler? Oh, what is this Live Alive? And then your gaming breadth starts to widen and increase. And then the price of the system is absolutely justified beyond the one franchise, you know? Let's see what else we got in here. Joycey with a how much more crispy can a game get? That's true. Boo Mini Astral Chain arrives on Monday. Nice. I know that that's your next one after the Xenoblade. Metroid Anxiety Attack. Yeah, especially if you're trying to catch up. You got to start somewhere. Sean Black, nice Boo. Keep us posted. It's a great game. Heck yeah, it is. Egomaniac. Third-party support is about to really switch to a part. Indiana Jones coming over is a big deal. Yeah, I'm so excited. I have several 3-month batches of Xbox Game Pass available because I bought several back in like November 2020 or so on sale. They were dirt cheap. It was like get a whole year's worth for like $20 or $40. So I was like, I'm gonna just buy like 3 years worth, and they come at 3-month batches. So I paid like $60 to $90 for 3 years worth of Game Pass. I don't need Game Pass on my system running constantly all 12 months a year. A new game comes out, looks pretty sweet, scratch off the little thing from one of my old cards, or digital in some cases, or paper as I printed out in other cases, fire it up for 3 months, experience this game, pretty sweet, and done. Maybe experienced a couple of other titles because there's so many available in Game Pass, and done. I was so close a couple of times to firing up another 3 months of Game Pass from some of these old cards that I have that still work, which is also pretty cool because Game Pass is even more expensive now, and I paid for it not just for an old price, but for a super discounted Black Friday price 5 years ago. So close a couple of times to firing it up for Indiana Jones, and I didn't. Now I'm like, I had the opportunity to basically play the game for free. My wife likes Indiana Jones. She loves the IP. We could play that together on the couch, swap controls. You play, me enjoy the story, you enjoy the story. Oh, cool. And we could have done that on our Xbox Series X. We could still do it now. And it would be basically for free because that card was so cheap and it was so many years ago. But I don't think I would be disappointed waiting another 5 months. If that game comes out in like February, March or something like that, pick it up for $70. And you're like, why? Why? Just because it's Nintendo? Not necessarily just because it's Nintendo, but I would like to own it as opposed to just having rented it. Especially if it's a great game, I would like to have it in my collection. Though I could always download or buy Indiana Jones like that. But it is that portable factor. Like my wife and I played through most of Split Fiction, to be fair, on the TV in the living room. But we had a couple of game sessions where took off that beautiful 8-inch diagonal screen, propped it up, stuck it on a couple of pillows on our bed, and played with that nice kickstand with 2 Pro Controllers, a Pro Controller 2 and a Pro Controller 1. A lot of Split Fiction. And that was just fun. So yeah, that handheld opportunity for Indiana Jones is nice. Whether it's, in a similar fashion in tabletop mode or in pure handheld mode. Now we'll also have to see how it runs and all that stuff, but I'm sure it's going to be fine, seeing how capable Nintendo Switch 2 is compared to Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S, But yeah, I'm probably more inclined to, here in 2026, spend $70 on Indiana Jones on Nintendo Switch 2 due to that added bonus of portability factor, especially the cool factor if it's on a cartridge full on, than kind of for free playing a basically almost free / dirt cheap version of the game because of my old, grandfathered in, if you want to think of it that way, Xbox Game Pass that I got years ago that wouldn't cost me anything now. And then probably because even Xbox Game Pass, one of the perks is when you're subscribed to it, you do get access to buying games for less. So, yeah, I I think I would go with the Nintendo Switch 2 version. Unless if maybe, okay, price does change, like if by the time the Nintendo Switch 2 version comes out, just the actual disc, right, of Indiana Jones on Xbox Series X, or the actual download of the game, not counting the DLC, is like $20 MSRP. 20 or 70, I'd probably say, you know what, I waited long enough. Yeah, maybe I'd get it up for 20 instead of 70. And yeah, I wouldn't have it portable or tabletop, but $50 is just too much to throw away, right? But if one is 50 or 60 and the new one is 60 or 70, but gives me that portable factor, in that case, I waited long enough, might as well get it for a little bit more on that portable factor, right? Woof, y'all got me talking. Robbie Rains. Hi, Paul. Hi, Robbie. Joycey J. You finally started Cereza and the Lost Demon. Such a sweet game so far. That's cool. That's good. Very different. Not the typical Bayonetta, absolutely. Different gameplay style, everything. But yeah, if you like the character, then that whole mythos in the world is neat. Mr. Chicken Lad, welcome. Gamer Wife, yeah. Do I see GTA 6 being $100? I wouldn't mind. Do I think it'll cost that much? I think Rockstar could get away with it. I don't think it's going to be 60, 70, or 80. 89.99. 99.99? I'm going to go with 90 or $100 is the MSRP cost for that. And either one of them I'm going to be fine with, because I know the game's going to be absolutely packed to the brink. I know that it was a over $1 billion worth of a production budget. I can respect the work went in, and I know I will appreciate the fun that my wife and I have playing it together, because we played the heck out of GTA 5 back in the day. Despite it being an Xbox 360 game, we played it on Xbox One. So yeah, whatever it is, I'm going to buy it because I know it's going to be worth it. I mean, to be fair, the next Legend of Zelda game, a franchise that I like more than Grand Theft Auto, the next Legend of Zelda game, if Nintendo was like $100, but it was basically Link, Zelda, Hyrule, fully orchestrated music, gorgeous, a massive Hyrule feel, visuals comparable to God of War Ragnarok, but set in Zelda with all of my favorite characters. You could hop on a boat, you could do a motorcycle, you could actually fly with a cape. I mean, we're traveling into the future, and we've got Cyberpunk Link dodging around buildings, and his sword goes from Master Sword to some kind of plasma energy kind of thing going off. And it's got voice acting up the wazoo. And it's big, and it's vibrant and colorful. And you could time travel to different eras and bring a Link from the past to join you here, and bam, all of a sudden you get a split screen experience. And in the base game, you could be Link and Zelda simultaneously going, and there's got tag team moves. I'm like, dude, I got $100. Of course I'm going to spend $100. I'll spend $150 because that's the Legend of Zelda. And that's a game that's going to get dozens of hours, if not hundreds of hours of play. And if it's that good and looks that good and has that much cool factor, and I already bought the system, then like whatever, dude. Like that's $150. That's worth it for me because I love it. It's my lifeblood. Legend of Zelda runs through these veins. So not only does it sound like it was worth it, because they had 9-year development cycle on it, and they had a 700-person team developing for it, and the game cost Nintendo more than anything ever before. I mean, it had a $480 million budget. So the price is justified, the quality is justified, everything is justified, and it happens to be one of my two favorite IP in existence. If it cost 100, 150, yeah. People do that with everything. I love coffee so much. The way I like it, the way Starbucks creates it, that yes, I spend $7. Don't you realize that you could buy a $7 bucket of coffee that'll last you 2 months? That will last you 120 servings worth if you're using it like twice a day or something like that for $7? Pennies for coffee? You're spending hundreds of times more of that for your $7 coffee because you love the way it tastes with the caramel and the fluffy cream and the extra shot of this and the boom, 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 boom. So be it. That's your high markup that you determine is worth it for you. So if some people are like, I would pay twice the amount of an $80 game if it was your favorite thing, that's you. Everyone's got their own price and justification for everything in life. Got me all talking, all hyped up. By the way, thank you for the... Oh, hold on, wait, that wasn't... I was just about to say thank you for the super chat, but that's not a super chat. What is that? Oh, that's a... Hold on. Getting a notification here. By the way, thank you for the... Oh, hold on, wait, that wasn't... I was just... Is there a super chat that came in that I missed or something like that? No. Never mind. Yeah, you got me all hyped up. Thank you for hitting that like button, by the way. And thank you all for being here. Once again. Boom Mini. I don't know. That was something else. Do you think the World of Warcraft will come to Switch 2? And what is your opinion of the game in general? I received World of Warcraft for free as a gift from Electronic Gaming Monthly back in the day when I was working for Gamers.com and OneUp.com. And I had a decent computer that was capable of running it. They gave me the PC release. And World of Warcraft is fun. World of Warcraft was good. I never went super deep dive playing it. One of those people that, you know, put in thousands of hours or even hundreds of hours. But it was good. The new upgrade, new edition, I think it's neat. Will it come to Nintendo Switch 2? It's the most capable Nintendo machine yet. We've seen other games of a comparable nature like, you know, Diablo 3 and 2 last generation come over. And we've got Civilization already on Nintendo Switch. Sometimes you have a weird omission like, gosh, wouldn't Final Fantasy 14 do well on Nintendo Switch 2? How come it's not there yet? Sometimes we have something weird like, by now, how come Grand Theft Auto 5 isn't on Nintendo Switch? I don't know. But we have, you know, like The Sims. That's another one. But we have Age of Civilization 7, Sid Meier's, right, that release, and the Diablo games. So I don't know if World of Warcraft will come over to Nintendo Switch, but it's the most powerful system. It has improved online over Nintendo Switch. It's got mouse mode, so whether I think it'll come or not, I don't know. I think it's possible. It would be nice to see. I think it looks cool. I would probably pick it up and play it. I still don't think I would be someone that puts in thousands of hours or hundreds of hours, but I would play it. Joycey with all the links to meet up, yes. Boom Mini dropped the $100 for Ocarina of Time remake, no questions asked. Absolutely. Egomaniac87, probably a hot take, but I'm hoping Monolith Soft doesn't help with the next Zelda games. Is that because you would rather see their efforts go towards Nintendo? Their efforts go towards like their own new Xenoblade game or their own new IP, like base out that woman with the knighthood, dragon background kind of thing, or you just want to see, Or you think that they would put down the Zelda game and you would rather see like, oh, Nintendo's other internal studios do better? Just wondering what's your reasoning. But hey, any of them are valid. It's all good. Boo Mini, I love coffee, but I stopped drinking it because you get acid reflux, and there better be a day where I can drink it again. Video games are your new coffee. If you need a wake up in the morning, one decent sized apple and a cup of warm water will give you enough natural energy to replace the equivalent of 1 cup of coffee. So if that's something for you, there's a little bit of knowledge, advice, whatever. Joycey, I almost justified myself into a donut earlier, but I resisted. See how that works? Yeah. I mean, I had a really good workout today. My Apple Watch says I burned 350 calories at the gym. Let me look up this donut. It says 350 calories. You know what? I earned it. I could justify this donut because my calorie intake versus an expenditure for the day has been balanced out. There you go. Treat yourself to the donut. People do it with everything. I don't mind people having different opinions. That's what makes the world work. We're all unique individuals. But when people like put down someone else's thought, I'm like, do you really gotta put down someone else's rationale when you probably have your own thing that you're like, oh yeah, I guess I take too long of a shower and that's my own water bill. I'm saying, hey, you should recycle, you should recycle, you should recycle because I recycle. Yet you chose to buy this car or you choose to drive a mile away instead of jog. So you're hurting the environment here where you're claiming to like, fight for it here, right? Folks have got different things to them, different issues, different isms. So judging others for video game purchases is the last thing most people should be doing. Okay. Tears of the Kingdom. Breath of the Wild felt like a weak version of Xenoblade Chronicles X. A weak version? I don't think so. I mean, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, they have such a physicality with the environment, a connection to everything, where everything feels weighted, that Xenoblade Chronicles X is great in a different way. But yeah, different opinion. You can still have coffee, Joyce? Yeah, you still can. I couldn't justify the donut trying extremely hard to cut out that kind of sugar. Oh, I know. It's tempting because it tastes good. It's funny that you mentioned donut because for like the last few days in a row, I was like, anybody want a donut? Donut in the house? Want a donut in the house? I'm like, I just want someone to say, yeah, I want a donut so that I could be like, woohoo! I get you a donut because I secretly want one myself. But I know, like, oh no, I should probably not get the donut right now because I don't need extra calories. Sean Black, very smart decision. It's hard to resist because it's so delicious and yummy, but focus on the negative side effects it has on your health and use that as motivation to run the other direction. Sometimes, yeah, you gotta balance the scales in life and talk yourself out of something instead of into something. Boo Mini might be our last chat, our last text or topic what I'm about to read, unless if there's a super chat that extends the stream or dono or something like that, because I'm going to have to wrap it up soon and eventually leave. But let's see. I like to get to everybody's comment. Boomini with the, if Monolith Soft helped with a Zelda game, wouldn't it look too much like Xenoblade games? No. If Nintendo internal said, we want it to look like this game, We want it to run like this game. We want the camera angles to feel like this, the swords to function like this, the cinema scenes to move like this, etc., etc., etc. Okay, this is the direction. You know what I mean? Given their own, hey, you have the full reins of how you want to make this work, go for it, then that's their own baby. It's like a director of a movie. You can't blame, spoiler alert, you can't blame Henry Cavill, the actor, in Man of Steel for letting Jonathan Kent get swept up by the tornado. Henry Cavill acted the way he was told to act by the director, Zack Snyder, by the writer writing him the lines of dialogue, and he did it. And he did it in a good way that met how was he asked to do it. So if Nintendo is saying, hey, Bandai Namco, hey, Monolith Soft, hey, Level 5, hey, Capcom, hey, Way Forward, this is how we would like you to handle this. Can you do that? Based off of the trust level and the competency and the skill level of said studio doing said task, then the thing is not going to look like different. No. Okay. This was really, really good talk. Thank you all for being here. Is that it? I think that's it. I don't know if I'll be back on later today. It's Wednesday. I will be back tomorrow, though, because tomorrow we will have our video game sales. I know that was the goal of last Thursday, but last Thursday it didn't end up happening because the Famitsu sales didn't come out. But let's see, before we go, we will have our video game. What does it look like? We've got 16 likes in here. Nice. Thank you all for doing that. Down 10 pounds, Joycey. Awesome. Super cool. Good job. I'm happy to hear that. Good for you. Keep it up. All right. I will be probably back on tomorrow morning with some video game sales talk. We should stream Mario Kart World. See, that would be fun, but I don't have a capture card. So it would be this kind of setup, and that's not going to fly the best. But it would be fun someday. Somehow. Somehow someday. Something like that. Sean Black, love that. Congrats. Keep going. Just be smart about it. Don't follow unsafe trends. Oh, like with Mario Kart? Oh, you're talking about Joycey and the 10 pounds. Yeah. Boom Mini, bye. Great discussion. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone. Talk to you later. Hope you enjoyed the stream. We went for like an hour and a half or something like that. I'm not sure. It's been a while, but it was good. Alrighty. See you all probably tomorrow morning or afternoon for some video game sales talk. Egomaniac, win stream, good work, thank you. I'll give you a chance to say bye to each other, just so I don't like close it and you're like, oh man, I didn't get to say bye to so and so, because I do like to see the sense of camaraderie in here. It's nice. Okay, cool. Bye, buddies, and bye, alls. Bye, everybody. Take care.